Spectral begins by showing Dr. Mark Klein, a researcher from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Klein is seen looking for an item in the junkyard. After finding what he was looking for, he goes to his office to make a sophisticated pair of glasses. He called the glasses hyperspectral glasses, which are often used by US troops in the war against the insurgency. Dr. Mindala, his co-worker, informs him of a report by US Army General Orland, which states that there is an oddity in using Klein's hyperspectral glasses. Klein was asked to meet General Orland in Moldova, Europe. After arriving at a US military airbase on the outskirts of Chisinau, he meets General Orland and a CIA officer, Fran Madison. They then show Klein footage captured by hyperspectral glasses. The footage captures a mysterious apparition that looks like a light and instantly kills the soldier. After figuring that it wasn't damage to his glasses, Orland asked Klein what he thought before passing on the tape findings to his superiors. Instead, Madison believes the sightings are members of the local rebels wearing high-ranking active camouflage suits. Klein finally decides to go down to the field to get a clearer picture to identify the strange sighting. Klein and Madison are sent to the area where the Utah team previously served. They will also be accompanied by a team of Delta Force operators, led by Captain Sessions and Captain Cabrera. Klein mounted a larger and clearer hyperspectral camera on top of one of the armored personnel vehicles to better capture the sightings. They began their mission to find out about the apparition and save the Utah team soldiers who might still be alive. Arriving at the destination, precisely in a building, the Delta Force soldiers found many members of the Utah team dead, along with members of the rebels. But there is one strange thing about the victims: their bodies do not have a single gunshot wound. In the search, the soldiers found one member of the Utah team, Sergeant Comstock, who was still alive because he was hiding under a bathtub. While several soldiers continued their search on the 5th floor, they were suddenly attacked by an apparition, which turned out to be immune to gunfire and explosives. It also caused many casualties and made other soldiers retreat from the place. Klein then tried to see the creature using his hyperspectral camera, and it was clear that the apparition resembled a human but in the form of white light. Captain Sessions then tried to shoot the apparition with a bazooka, but surprisingly, the weapon was again ineffective and the apparition killed Captain Sessions in an instant. Klein and the others then tried to leave, but their vehicle was hit by a landmine and killed Sergeant Comstock, having hit his head pretty hard. The group then takes refuge in an abandoned factory. Klein then tried his hyperspectral camera again. Several apparitions outside the factory attempted to follow them but were stopped by the iron filings scattered on the ground. The soldiers then tried to check the condition of the factory, and to their surprise, they found 2 girls in a room. Later, the children recounted that their father spread the iron filings outside the factory to protect them before he was killed. One of the girls then assumed that the apparitions might be lost souls. On the other hand, some soldiers managed to contact the airbase and call for help, but they had to go to a wider and open area to be reached by rescue helicopters. Meanwhile, Klein modifies the hyperspectral camera to be like a large spotlight, allowing the group to see sightings without needing to wear glasses. Klein also finds many chests of iron filings in the factory room. They then use the iron filings by stuffing them into grenades and dirty bombs as their main weapon against outside apparitions. Armed with grenades and Klein's new tools, the group was ready to head to the rendezvous point about half a mile from the factory. Shortly after, several sightings were seen making their way inside the factory after passing through the iron filings outside. This forced everyone in the factory to leave. The apparitions on the outside chased the group protected by a Delta Force unit, using grenades and iron filings to slow them down. After arriving at the rendezvous point, Klein's hyperspectral spotlight suddenly went out completely. Shortly after, reinforcements in the form of tanks arrived and began shooting at the apparitions. However, it was all in vain, and in the end, the evacuating soldiers were killed very quickly, as were their tanks, which the apparitions could easily destroy. On the other hand, one of the 2 children was accidentally separated from the group and was eventually killed by an apparition. Shortly after, the rescue helicopter came to the meeting point. As the apparitions drew near, a gust of wind from the helicopter blades suddenly stopped them, and the survivors managed to escape. Once safe in the air, they receive word from Orland that another apparition has invaded the airbase, so they are directed to a civilian bunker controlled by the Moldovan Allied military. After thinking about what the girls they had saved earlier had said, Klein concluded that the apparitions were likely man-made creatures made of Bose-Einstein condensate, which explains their ability to move through walls, freeze people to death, and their inability to through iron filings and ceramic material, as evidenced by Comstock, who survived because he was hiding under the bathtub. Klein then concluded that the sightings resulted from Moldova's experiments in making bulletproof soldiers, which would be used in wars against other countries. He then says that he can make a weapon to ward off apparitions and then tells the soldiers that they must storm the power plant in Masarov to stop all the creatures. After working together all night long with Orland and the surviving military engineers, Klein creates several weapons capable of destroying condensate creatures. Later, Madison said that there was a weapons research lab in Masarov. They then decided to make two teams, where Klein and Madison were tasked to enter the lab and the other soldiers would fight the apparitions. The next day, the remaining American soldiers headed to the Masarov power plant in the city center in V-22 Ospreys. They then immediately tested the new weapon Klein had made in the field, and after the weapon had succeeded in a test run to kill one apparition, the soldiers went straight to their job. While the soldiers are eradicating the apparitions outside, Klein and Madison make it into the laboratory. Upon entering a research room, they concluded that the scientists, who worked on weapons research for the previous regime, scanned humans at the molecular level and used advanced 3D printing to replicate them in condensate form. The human test subject's brain and peripheral nervous system were removed and connected to a central machine that kept the condensate creatures alive. Klein and Madison find a collection of condensate creatures confined in cells lined with ceramic and glass in another room. There is a large machine in the center of the room, which seems to be the source of power for the creatures, as seen from the wires connected to the ceramic cells. Klein immediately tried to remove all the cables using the tools there. Outside the laboratory, the troops were still battling the apparitions, who seemed to be forming a new larger body. General Orland, who saw this, began to combine several weapons made by Klein into one to destroy the apparition with one big shot. After a while, Klein finally managed to untie all the connecting wires and automatically destroy all remaining sightings, both inside and outside the laboratory. After that, he and Madison entered another room containing many human bodies used as objects to produce condensate creatures. Klein and Madison, thinking that the human objects were in pain, finally unplugged the humans from the machine, hoping that it would at least give them some peace. With the sightings gone, the US and Moldovan militaries continued their mission to take the city from the rebels. The Department of Defense extraction team will be sent back to the factory with Delta Force operators to dismantle the condensate creating machine and intend to use it for themselves.